Welcome to Simmons Says, where I help emerging and struggling writers create intriguing plots and compelling characters to make their stories hard to put down and even harder to forget. Hey, welcome to another episode of Simmons Says. What I want to talk to you today about is why do your plots fall apart? Now, I'm not talking about your talent. I'm not talking about your ideas, not your characters, your plot. And here's the uncomfortable truth about that. See, stories, they don't necessarily collapse because writers lack creativity. They collapse because writers tend to lack clarity and a strategic intent. So let me sort of walk you through this. We'll start with number one, a lack of preparation. Yes, I know some people like to write by the seat of their pants, which, have an idea and you just roll with it and you discover as you go. And that's great. That works for some writers, not all. Okay. You sit down, you're inspired, you start writing, but you don't know the ending, not quite sure where you're going. And so you don't know your character's primary goal. You don't know what must happen for the story to feel complete. And that's kind of like you're getting in a car and pressing the gas and saying, well, I'll just see where the road takes me. I mean, that can work. People can start out a holiday that way. But most of the time, you run out of gas and supplies and whatever and patience before you ever reach your destination. Or in this case, as a writer, you sort of lose it before you get to the meaning, the core, the whole thing that your story is about. Look at something like the Shawshank Redemption. That story worked because it knew exactly where it was going from the beginning. The whole core of it was about freedom, right? It's about redemption. It was about escape. The ending is baked into the spine of the story from the beginning, from the start. That's what it was about, escape and freedom and redemption. Or consider the Hunger Game. Now, Katniss has a crystal clear objective in that one, as do others in there, but hey, the story's about her. Survival. That's her objective, to make it and survive, and therefore be able to not only benefit herself, but those she cares about. Every scene bends towards that, survive. If you don't know your ending, or at least the emotional resolution that you're going after, your middle wanders. It becomes this murky, confusing, maze-like existence, and you get lost in it. That's number one. Number two, running on pure inspiration. Inspiration is fuel. It is not a steering wheel. You can't drive a story on just vibes and your feelings, your muses. You can start out with all that, and you can draft a few really nice, strong scenes or beautiful moments, right? But without structure, you stall. Now, I've seen writers create really brilliant opening chapters or great scenes, atmosphere, lyrical, intense, and then about a third of the way in or 30 pages in, they're stuck. And they're looking for a new idea, a better idea that won't have any problems. That's because atmosphere, mood, is not architecture. It's not structure. Take Jaws. Yes, it has mood, it has atmosphere, it has suspense. But structurally, it is also airtight. There's a clear threat, there's clear stakes, and they escalate to that final confrontation. Now, the vibes, the music, the energy gets you into the water, but the structure gets you back to shore alive, metaphorically and actually. Okay, so that's number two. Number three, imposter syndrome mid-draft. This one is sneaky. You're halfway through, and then suddenly you think, this is stupid. It's not going to work. Would a real writer do this? Maybe I should rewrite the beginning again, blah, 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 blah. And you start fixing instead of finishing. You rewrite chapter 1 6 times. You tinker with it. You mess with the dialogue. You do all those things that keep you rolling around in the same arena, but you don't move forward. you sort of stagnate there, trying to make whatever you did create better before you've even completed the rest of the tale. You cannot fix what you refuse to finish. Finish before perfection. Number 4, overcomplication. Yep. The 5 stories in one syndrome, right? You've got a murder mystery, a romance subplot, a political conspiracy, a childhood trauma backstory, and a philosophical meditation on existence. Pick one. Check out The Godfather, okay? Maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't, but think about this. Yes, it's layered. Yes, it's rich in family and mystique and all of that, and even the era there. There's a whole atmosphere to the time period is taking place. But its spine is simple. Michael Corleone's transformation and the preservation of power. Everything feeds that. When you overload your narrative with equal weight ideas, nothing feels urgent. Simplify before expanding. And keep your goal in mind. Number 5, no clear direction. If there are no stakes, the story drifts. If conflict doesn't escalate, tension flattens. If characters don't change, the reader eventually disengages. They lose interest. In Gone Girls, the stakes escalate relentlessly. Every revelation shifts power. Every act changes the direction. That's deliberate structural engineering. If your story feels like it's sagging, ask yourself, what does my protagonist want? What stands in the way? What happens if they fail? And if you can't answer that clearly, your plot probably can't either, because you don't know where you're going. Number 6, falling in love with your characters and not your story. This one hurts. Yeah, I got you. You love your protagonist. He's cool, she's great, whatever. They're witty, they're charming, they've got killer backstories, but personality is not plot. A cool character doing random interesting things is not a story. Yes, there are rare examples of that being to the contrary, but rare is the operative word. Sherlock Holmes is fascinating, but what makes Holmes compelling isn't just his intellect. It's the cases he's on, the mysteries he's solving, the stakes that are involved. That's why something like The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo works. Elizabeth is unforgettable, but she's tied to a powerful investigative spine. Character plus objective plus obstacle equals story. Please remember that. Not character alone. Number 7, chasing a trend or trends. That basically translates to, I'm going to write what's popular, what's hot, what's hitting right now, right? What's out there and I see lots of and everybody's doing it. Dystopian because dystopian is hot. Vampires because vampires are sexy or they sell, right? AI thrillers because AI is trending. We can argue that a whole nother time. But you don't emotionally understand any of the genres. And the reader can feel that it's an imitation, a weak one at that. Look at Get Out, okay? That film. It wasn't chasing a trend. It was rooted in a lived emotional truth. That's why it resonated. That's why it worked. Write what you understand emotionally, even if the genre wrapper changes. There are certain universal truths that can be wrapped in a different packaging, but they still resonate because they are authentic. 8, trying to please too many voices. You get feedback from a friend, your uncle, a workshop, a beta reader, a teacher, a YouTube video, a writing blog, whatever. And suddenly your original idea is gone. Even what I'm saying, take it and use it if you can. If you can't, put it aside. Now instead you find yourself, you're patching together other people's suggestions. And feedback is valuable, yes, but protect your core vision. Protect your voice, your personal lens. Structure before sparkle. Finish before perfect. Simplify before expanding. Know the ending before the midpoint. Yes, I know you can argue that point, but bear with me on this. Protect your original vision and write what you understand emotionally. At least starting out, build up those chops, build up those muscles. Okay, so what is or was this episode about? Think of it as a diagnostic, okay? Not to shame you, not to make you feel bad, but to help you stabilize. If your plot keeps falling apart, it's not because you're not meant to write. That's an easy go-to, but that's not the truth. It's because you're building without a blueprint. And blueprints can be learned. They can be thumbnail sketches. They can be doodles on a napkin. But next time you start a story, ask, what is the ending? What does my protagonist want? What escalates? What changes? Answer those questions before you write 30 pages. You'll be shocked how much stronger your story stands, okay? Now, let me turn it to you. Have you ever abandoned a draft because it just wasn't working? Was it the structure or self-doubt? We'll talk more about that, about building stronger narrative spines and all that next time. Until then, serve your story, but build it to last. That's all for now. Simmons says.